Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the special edition of This Just In Radio. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. Today, we're broadcasting live from HIMSS25 in sunny Las Vegas. Very excited to be here. It's already been an action-packed 72 hours. The HIMSS annual conference is always the centerpiece of my annual schedule, and this happens to be my 25th HIMSS annual conference and my 11th year broadcasting from the annual conference, which leads us to today. This is the start of 3 days, 5 shows, and over 40 guests here in Las Vegas for HIMSS25. We have our best lineup yet of CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, care providers, researchers, policy leaders, and visionaries joining the show. As many of you know, my goal for broadcasting live each year from these key conferences is to create an information medium that shares best practices, key strategies, and actionable intelligence from the industry's leading sources and experts. My objective, along with all my guests here, will be to offer tactics and strategies to not only survive, but to thrive as you navigate your hospital, your physician practice, your company, or even your family through all these changes occurring across healthcare today. There is more opportunity than ever before for all of us to thrive, but we must understand how healthcare is evolving, how policy and reimbursement is shifting, and where best practices and innovation can support our efforts. I hope you glean all of this over the next few days. That's at least my goal. Welcome back to This Just In Radio Show, broadcasting live from HIMSS25 in sunny Las Vegas. I'm very excited to introduce my next guest and new friend of the show, Michael Zager, CEO of Cirro Bio. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you here. So I assume it's been an amazing few days for you. First of all, when did you get in town?
So I actually got in town on Sunday, and it's been a whirlwind. So I've been meeting with all kinds of folks, seen some, great presentations. Yep. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. So not only is the show floor awesome, but this HIMSS in general, an annual conference for sure, is a great place for learning, building relationships, fostering old relationships, seeing peers that you haven't seen in a long time. I assume it's been a great experience for you in that regard too?
Absolutely. I was honored last year to get a chance to present at HIMSS, and this year has really been a lot of just, meeting, greeting, and building partnerships.
Yep. Well, I know AWS thinks very highly of you. I was working with them on something different, and they said, hey, you've got to have Michael on your show. And so we certainly had to make room for you. So very excited to hear what you're up to and all that good stuff. So before we dive in, what progress are you most excited seeing in the industry today?
So everyone is talking about AI, right? And so you can really not answer that question without bringing up AI. But I think what I'm most interested in that space is people that are actually leveraging it today to for practical purposes, and specifically like around data sharing. So it's been really interesting to talk with companies like Interweb that is doing OMAP mapping, to other people that are doing de-identification like Snow Labs, but people that are solving real world problems. And I think that's what I'm most excited to be seeing. Yep.
So you, tell us a little bit about, before we dive into your questions further, tell us about your journey a little bit. Where were you before, and now you got Cirro Bio, and so how did that come to fruition?
Yeah, so I have kind of an unusual background. I spent the first 15 years of my career developing solutions for Fortune 100 companies, startups, et cetera. And around 10 years ago, I lost my mother and my uncle within a year.
Sorry.
So I reached out to the Senior Vice President of Human Biology at the Fred Hutch with just the hope that we could have some impact, right? Like that my background could be used to accelerate cures. And so I was at the Fred Hutch for 10 years. Over that time, I founded a visualization center across the Brodmann Beatty Institute, UW Genome Sciences, and the Fred Hutch. And then I really turned my attention to how we could be accelerating research by ingesting data directly from shared resource cores. So flow cytometry, proteomics, genomics, et cetera, into the cloud, enabling people to run massive batch compute using simple point-and-click interfaces with reproducibility and translating that into visualizations. So at this point, most of the Fred Hutch is actually, now all the data being generated there is actually going directly into our platform.
Wow.
And so what led me to the startup is that about a year and a half ago, I was very fortunate to win the AWS Imagine grant to go further faster.
Yes.
And I went and I met with a number of other institutions because I really wanted to extend the impact, right? That's why I came to the Hutch, was to have impact. And there was a ton of interest. What turned out to be a roadblock was contracting between institutions. It is very difficult for the Fred Hutch to, say, sign an agreement to host data on behalf of a Dana-Farber or an MSK.
Right.
And so ultimately, I was basically in a situation where the Fred Hutch said, like, if you really want to go do this, you should think about spinning this out and we'll support you in that endeavor. And that's what we've done.
That's excellent. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So, tell us about you. How long ago did you start? About a year and a half ago, you said? Or
we're actually only 8 weeks old.
Oh,
which is wild.
That's
but
wild.
We've been developing and partnering now for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
And it's been under development for like 7 years.
Congratulations. Well, here's baptism by fire. Certainly coming into HIMSS25, being like 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks old is awesome. Congratulations there.
Thank you.
So, I think you just touched on it. A great segment, segue into my next question. What are you currently working on that you're most passionate about? So give us some of the specifics of the problems that you're solving and why it's so near and dear to your heart. Beyond, obviously, you mentioned your family. But,
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of people talking about data sharing. But having spent many years within a research institution, I know it's equally important to be able to share pipelines, which is something that today is very difficult. I know that it's equally important to be able to track the lineage of these data, or else they lose their value over time. And I know it's particularly important to be able to share the visualizations of that data.
Absolutely.
Right? To really, because research is a collaborative endeavor. And so what I'm most excited about doing today is streamlining the process and enabling other research centers and foundations to be able to leverage this platform and to be able to make contributions that can be utilized, across the industry.
Yeah. So are you leveraging standards that are out there like FHIR, or when you say data sharing, so dive into that a little bit, because my background is interoperability and data sharing. So.
Yeah, so we're actually coming at it pretty much from the other end of the spectrum. So our focus has really been on data that is generated by next generation instrumentation. So our focus has been genomics, proteomics, metabolomics, cellular imaging, et cetera. And we are starting to get into the clinical trial space. One of the reasons I'm here at HIMSS is really to identify partners. Because again, I don't think everyone should be reinventing the wheel. So if we can find a partner to help us on that end, it would be fantastic.
Good for you. Were you at our dinner on Monday night?
I was, yes.
I thought so. Okay, I was sitting towards the front. Yeah, because that was a great consortium of people that came together on Monday night. So
yes, AWS is fantastic at putting together these groups.
Yeah, they're a big tent family for sure. So I think you just touched on my next question, but so what are some of your goals for being here? We're kind of on the tail end of HIMSS, which is exciting. So what were some of your goals, and what else you want to accomplish while you're here?
My primary goal was to find like-minded people. And also to determine, really, how can we accelerate our impact with some of our initial clients. So really, I'm here to sort of advocate for them and, try to propel them forward. And it's been great. I've had opportunities to meet with folks from a broad cross-section of AWS, as well as pediatric researchers like Adam Resnick from CHOP.
Adam was on my show last week, 2 days ago. Yeah.
Oh, I love Adam.
Yeah, Adam's great.
He is a fantastic human being.
Yes.
So
cool.
I'd love to partner with him, and I'd love just to enable people to move faster.
Yep. I love it. Fantastic. I know you're going to accomplish that. When do you go home?
I am going home after this, actually.
Well, thank you for staying for the show.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
That's fantastic. So looking ahead into the proverbial crystal ball, what do you see as a strategy or trend that we must ready to navigate in 2 to 3 years from now?
This is a tough question.
It is.
Because there's so much uncertainty. I think what we can't overlook right now is the current funding climate. When you look at what's happened just recently in terms of indirect rates, for places like Fred Hutchinson that is, traditionally had a 76% indirect rate, and watching that go to 15% is going to pose major challenges. And I think that the ramifications of those challenges will be over the next couple of years is that if I had a crystal ball, I would say that there will be much less investment in building on-prem infrastructure because the grants simply won't be there. So that will force migration to the cloud. That makes sense too, because there's a great need for like GPUs for all this new AI stuff. But I also think that it is going to slow innovation. And so one area where I'm really hoping we can help is to provide academic research centers and others with a very affordable yet robust and mature product. Because that's why I got into this space in the first place, right? And I haven't lost sight of that. So I think we will see, just in summary, a huge move to the cloud and hopefully more collaboration, because right now there's a lot of people reinventing the wheel, and that's enabled, I think, by, without the funding, I think it's going to force people to partner more, which may be the only silver lining.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that's actually been a resounding or resonating theme across a lot of my guests. Certainly the thought leaders, they say, hey, we have a lot of change coming. Embrace it. How can you become more efficient? But also, this could strive us to be more innovative in some areas. So let's look at the silver lining. It's going to happen. So you might as well look at the silver lining.
Absolutely.
And try to and make the best of it. But also, this can be best. Even Anish Chopra and Rasu Shrestha, some of these great thought leaders came there and said, guys, embrace it and look at the positive side. And there is a lot of positive, certainly when it comes to innovation, partnerships, relationships, scaling. We need people. We can't be doing. First of all, you don't want to be standing up archaic infrastructures.
Absolutely.
And that can happen certainly when you get funded. When there's easy money moving around, you fund it. In archaic architecture. I think we all know that moving to the cloud is absolutely the most secure, the best process for most companies.
Absolutely.
So I think that is a positive aspect. In our closing minute or so, who would be the top 5 targets? You mentioned CHOP, but I've been Adam Resnick and what he's doing at CHOP. What would be some good partners for you in the next couple of years?
So one of our earliest that we're already partnering with is the Breakthrough Cancer Foundation, which is made up of MD Anderson, Dana-Farber, Johns Hopkins, MSK, and MIT. We're also talking with other nonprofit foundations. I think that's a great way to facilitate sharing across organizations. But we're also talking with a number of large hospital systems. And we've had some very early successes in actually onboarding. There's a particular institute in California where we were actually able to get them up and running with the platform. From the time I met them to where they were running pipelines in the cloud was 3 days.
Wow.
And now they're doing instrument level integrations. So it promises to really to bring the same type of transformation that we delivered at Hutch to that organization. So that's what I'm really hoping to accomplish. It's just broad adoption.
Yep. Well, one thing great about my show is I have a lot of great, phenomenal listeners, and we use this kind of as a collaboration point and a relationship point. So hopefully, that might just come to all fruition for just my normal listenership. So I hope that it really does. Obviously, you're doing great work. AWS thinks you're doing fantastic work. So I'm very proud to have you on the show, my friend.
Thank you.
Michael Zager, CEO of Cirro Bio. Welcome again. Thank you, and have a great rest of your show.
Thank you. You too.
Welcome back to This Justin Radio Show, broadcasting live from HIMSS25 in sunny Las Vegas. I'm very excited to introduce my next guest and great friend of the show and very longtime friend of mine, Mr. Tom Leary, Senior VP and Head of Government Relations with HIMSS. Welcome back to the show, my good friend.
Thank you, Justin. It's great to be back.
It is great to see you. It's been way too long. When did you get in town, first of all?
Sunday, just before the crazy wind.
Yes. Oh, well, I hit those crazy winds. I came in on Sunday trying to land around 1 p.m. And we actually had a big gust as we were landing. Our wing almost hit the ground, and we had to abort our landing.
Oh, my God.
And took up a hard ascent. It was very scary. This is my scariest land of my life. That was insane. Those winds were crazy out there on Sunday.
We landed 40 minutes early because of those winds.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. I was not so fortunate. It scared the crap out of me.
Sorry.
But God is good and all is well.
There we go.
I assume it's been an amazing few days for you.
Absolutely. We started with, we've signed 3 MOUs with 2 countries, and the NHAT Collaborative for the Underserved. Remember that group?
Yes.
We signed a MOU with them to launch NHIT Inspire, which is helping with workforce development. But then country of Colombia and the country of Turkey have both renewed their efforts with HIMSS. So
beautiful.
That's just the baseline of the week. So
good
absolutely.
For you. Congratulations. Phenomenal work. Yeah, I'm excited. Actually, this is one of my studying episodes because I love policy. I've not been able to do as much as I normally do. But first of all, before we dive into some of the specifics around regulatory and legislative aspects, what progress are you most excited about seeing in the industry today?
The progress is how we utilize AI in a way that is both informative for the patient and the provider on decision making, but also how do we use it in a way that reduces burden and doesn't scare people out of the professions.
Yep.
Lots of nurses we talked to the nurses this week a couple of times. Lots of them are real excited. Lots of them are real nervous that it's going to take their job. So we got to find that happy medium. But it's going to have a huge impact on the community.
Yep. Excellent. Good point. Also, I know you gave me a chocolate. Let's give them a shout out from this great chocolate you handed me off air. Who brought this chocolate?
The Jürgen Brandstatter on behalf of the Ministry of Health in the country of Austria. They weren't able to be here with us in Las Vegas this year. They plan on coming next year. And as a gift, expectation of their commitment to next year, they gave us some chocolate.
And you just gave one to me. Fantastic chocolate from Austria.
Austria.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. So, what are some of the main legislative topics that you're currently engaged in? I think even maybe before that, what is kind of the sentiment of Capitol Hill right now, or the administration? I know there's a lot of change, a lot of evolutions in some areas, but what are some of your thoughts there?
We're expecting not more of the same, because there's no way to get more of the same with the Doge being involved.
Right.
But we're expecting this administration to have the commitment to health IT and digital health transformation the way that they did in
previously
Trump administration 1.0.
You got it.
So what that looks like, though, I think is still a little bit up in the air.
Okay.
But we can count on they're interested in innovation, reducing regulatory burden, and improving
efficiency for sure, and efficiency.
And efficiencies, absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What, I guess, from a standpoint of some of the policies that you can see, even do we have any glean on the legislative side or the regulatory side, or some of the thoughts there?
So the first thing on the legislative side is there's lots of curiosity, particularly the House and Senate Veterans Committees, on how is it going with the EHR modernization.
Okay.
And so there might be legislation to further encourage them to speed up the process, but do it in an efficient way.
Right.
There's also lots of conversation around cybersecurity legislation. Change Healthcare is I think is a watershed moment for everyone.
Top of mind for sure.
And top of mind. That's a great way of saying it. But do we have national policy on cybersecurity and AI, or do we allow other countries and other regions to define what will be what our framework will look like? You think of GDPR,
right? Yeah.
And I think you and I may have talked about this in the past.
Yes, we have.
GDPR is defined everybody's the way of doing privacy with respect to internet and data.
Yes.
AI Act passed the EU. It's in enforcement as of December. European Health Data Space is enacted, and the Cyber Act has been enacted for the EU. Those 27 countries could impact everybody else if the United States doesn't get really focused on cyber policy and AI policy.
Right. And we had the current chair of the EHR Association on our show a couple guests ago. We love her.
Yay.
But she talked about the need for the feds to basically step in on some of this legislation. We don't want, in regulatory aspects, we don't want the states to run off and do some of this on their own. We need to be consolidated. We need to be uniform. We can't have 50 different policies when it comes to cyber, or with AI and management and governance and all that kind of. We really do need some federal guidelines and some federal standards.
Yes, and so we're working with Congress on making sure that they have that kind of leadership in place.
Beautiful. And I'll be honest with you, it's been actually a resounding theme. Most of my guests, certainly all the thought leaders, are basically saying, use this as an opportunity. We aren't going to have as much money floating around. Use this as an opportunity to be smarter, more innovative, do more with less, be more efficient. And I've had people from both sides of the aisle on my show over the last couple of days, and they both are saying that. So there's a positive aspect of, hey, because even one of my guests brought up how archaic networks were getting propped up because all this free money was flowing around. Yeah. Let the markets now dictate some of that, not have federal influence into a bad architecture just because, hey, there's money for that. It propped up some really bad stuff. Let's just leverage more innovation. So I think that's a positive side. We got to look at the positive, the silver lining of all these changes. So that can be one of them for sure.
I absolutely agree with you. And part of the conversation this week in the halls has been just to that issue of, are you expecting more regulatory activity, or is the market, or are they going to let the market dictate? And right. Some of what with certification and some of the expectations around just overall outcomes, moving towards outcomes, is absolutely allowing this administration, and quite frankly the previous administrations, have wanted the market to dictate quite a bit.
Right. Yeah, I think there's absolutely a role where we need feds, when we need the ONC, and now it's the OSTP, and what's
ASTP.
ASTP.
Yeah,
But it was the ONC, now it's ASTP.
ASTP, ONC. Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
We need them desperately because we need coordination, certainly, and the federal coordinator. So that's a very important aspect. I want to make sure I use my platform whenever I can to evangelize on that perspective, because what Steve Posnack and that whole group has done for 20 years now is fantastic for our industry. We have a much more efficient healthcare system because of their work, and we need to see that continue on. Now, obviously, there's aspects for deregulation that are really important, that could be key and foster a lot of great market movement, innovation, and even better care. But we also need to make sure we do have there is a spot for the feds and for the office and for all their great work. So, what would you give some advice there regarding that?
We have to remind ourselves and remind the DOJ that the ONC's coordinating role has been very effective in terms of helping to modernize the thinking in the CDC, for example.
Yes.
Bringing on fire-based applications into the public health community.
Yes.
In 2019, we presented CDC with the idea of working with HIEs and working with fire, and they were very reticent. They're now all in because of the partnership between ONC and CDC.
Right.
It's that coordination work. AHRQ, HRSA, all of those agencies, the coordination between and the work with ONC, ASTP, ONC, if they would finalize that, for example.
That'd be great. I know.
It's absolutely essential to the overall work.
Love it. And I'm glad we've had a chance to talk about that. Is there anything else that you would like to see on the regulatory front this year that say, hey, Justin, let's call this out specifically? Is there something? Can
we get to a point where we permanently include telehealth services?
There you go.
In reimbursement for telehealth services, not doing. This is like
kick the can. Year after year.
This isn't the sustainable growth rate kicking,
which
but
we used to work on that.
Bad.
Yes, we worked on that for 17 years. I don't even know how long I worked on that.
Terrible.
Yes.
So, but can we get that completed? And then, heaven forbid, we have a resolution around a patient identification strategy.
There you go.
So, but looking on an innovation, those are a couple of things that are just hanging around.
Yep.
But from an innovation perspective, making sure that we have the proper balance between patient safety and innovation, but not leaning so far into regulatory restrictions that it restricts innovation.
Yep.
What we hear from many of our members on the floor here is that if you have too much regulation, that takes money away from the innovation, because they have to not only comply, they have to monitor the compliance, et cetera, so that further pulls them back. So how do they reduce provider burden? Continue to innovate.
Yeah, I built one of the EHR companies in this industry, and it cost us about $1 million back then, $1 million a year just to manage our regulatory aspects of the business.
Wow.
$500,000. It started off as like $500,000, but $1 million, that's a lot of money for a small company. So
Absolutely.
there's a lot to it. Certainly when CCHIT and the whole certification process, we're spending about $1 million on just managing regulatory, all the work, because it take all the coding, all the review of the regs, all the obviously the comment periods and all that kind of being actively involved in that whole process. It's expensive. So it is necessary. There's a lot of great that comes from it, but it's also extremely expensive to your point. So you got to balance that and manage that very closely.
Absolutely.
What are some, so I guess, thinking ahead, and you talked about cyber and AI, and that might be the answer here, but what significant legislative or regulatory issues must we be ready to navigate in a couple years from now? I know it's extremely difficult to project out because we don't even have some baselines right now, but what are your thoughts there?
Quantum computing. We hear from countries across the globe, watch out, it's coming, and it's coming for healthcare. It's already here in some sectors. And so what does that mean for the United States? Are we going to allow other capitals to, legislation from other capitals to define what that means for us in healthcare? How's it going to fit into, the AI strategy, the cyber strategy, just overall outcome strategies? Just country after country starting to mention quantum computing. So we're curious. We don't have answers.
Wow, now
yet,
you got my curiosity piqued here.
I can say the words right now, but let's work together on
Brilliant.
a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom Leary, Vice President of HIMSS for Government Affairs, Government Relations, Head of Government Relations, a rock star in the industry. First of all, in our closing second, I think you might. How many HIMSS have you been to? How many annual conferences? I've been to 25. You might have me beat.
2001.
Okay,
so what's that? 24.
Okay. Well, I started coming here in '97.
Okay.
And I didn't really count 2020
Oh, so
because but I still did my radio show live though. We said like Hal's first year and Hal was on my show, and I said all my guests were Sue, John Halamka, Niche. They also showed up, but we did, and even Mickey Trathy. We did it remotely though. We didn't do it.
We had a virtual conference after the other one was, the face-to-face was pulled. So I still count that as a year.
Oh yeah. All right, my friend, great to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
That's a wrap from Las Vegas and HIMSS25. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to everyone who voted us 2024 Healthcare Podcast of the Year. Thank you so much, Roberta Mullen, Greg Masters, Carol Flagg, and the entire crew at the Healthcare Now Radio Network. They've also been producing my show for 11 years. Also, a special note of thanks to Jake Reed, my head of media, and certainly a big thank you to Hal Wolf, Albie Zakes, Morgan Searles, the entire HIMSS team. They're always extremely supportive in the events and broadcasting requirements that I have. And again, thank you so much to all my listeners. We're grateful for you. You make us better with every broadcast. And that's a wrap from Las Vegas. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.